Alright. Think we're about ready to go here. Make sure I'm using the right microphone. Testing, testing. Yeah, that's right. Just double check here. Yeah, we're good. Alright. So we're just going to dive right into it today. Excuse me. Wait until it gets a little busier before I give the whole intro and everything. I think everything's working.
Thanks for that, tough guy.
Oh, someone pointed this out in the last stream. I think I'll put this up here so that it doesn't block the little subscriber thing. It doesn't snap though. That's fine. Yeah, that looks alright. Doesn't block my face or my hands or anything. Alright, so yeah, I'm just gonna get started. We'll wait until there are a few more people in the chat before I give the whole introduction to the video and everything. But all you need to know right now is that I'm working on this robot illustration, this automaton. I'm just kind of chill. Let me know if the music is too loud or not loud enough. I think I got it at a good volume here. But just let me know if it is not the case. Hey there everyone, welcome to the stream. Just kind of taking it slow for a while until we have a few more people, and then I'll sort of give the whole intro spiel for those of you who might be joining for the first time. Music sounds good? Alright, good. Got my nice stream safe jazz. It's the same music that I use in every stream. I'm getting a little tired of it. I might have to find another stream safe jazz. Tricky thing about finding these tracks is you can't always just look up like stream safe music on YouTube. Sometimes it says it's stream safe, but then it gets copyright striked anyway. We don't want that. It's a bit of a trial and error process. And you know, YouTube has their own creator music that I use for videos. So maybe what I could do is make a playlist of those and play that during the streams, because I know those are safe for use. Get flagged. Alright, so what we are working on today is Kaijune. And some of you already know what Kaijune is. If you've been following along with the challenge, you already know. But just in case you're joining for the very first time and you don't know what the hell is going on, I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory, honestly. But the challenge, Kaijune, has artists drawing a new kaiju design, so kaiju, giant monster, essentially, every day for the month of June, based off of a set of prompts. Now, I made my own prompt list, a bunch of one-word prompts, and a bunch of different artists are following along with my prompt list. We have this awesome community on Unveil, the link to which is in the description, and And everyone who is following along with my list, post their artwork on there, and you can see all of the different cool ideas that people have been cool ideas that people have been thinking up. That's the correct way to say that. And it's been a fun challenge. So we're already done with week 1. First week in June has come and gone, and I'm pretty happy with everything that I did. It's been an interesting month. I've been really trying to focus on improvement. I mean, that's always a goal for me when I do these kinds of challenges. You know, find new ways, not just to make good art, but to make good art quickly. You know, because you do an illustration every day for a month, it requires you to expedite. You know, you can't really take your time per se with each illustration. It's just, there's just not the time for it. And it's a good skill to have as an illustrator, especially if you're looking into, you know, working professionally in the industry. Obviously, you're going to have deadlines, you're going to have time constraints, you're going to have overlapping projects. So it's important to not just be able to make good art, but to make good art quickly. In the industry, at least. But it's interesting because you can also, while you're practicing these kinds of techniques, at least while I'm practicing these kinds of techniques, you might find that there are some techniques that you wouldn't normally use. You know, we get into these sort of comfortable patterns as artists and illustrators where we kind of start doing the same thing every time we try to make an illustration. And sometimes having an opportunity to try different methods and approaches to technical illustration can, you know, affect the way you draw permanently. You know, not just to save time, not just to get the challenge done, but you might say, wait, I actually really like the way this looks. I want to illustrate like this more often. And that's sort of been happening to me. It's interesting. I've been discussing a lot in these streams about how I approach, you know, these illustrations from, you know, a technical perspective, and people have been asking me, like, do you like line work? Do you like painting? And I don't know. I still haven't really decided, but for the last couple of illustrations, I have been doing much cleaner line work before I get to the painting phase, and I think it's been helping me. So yes, to answer your question, this is Tempest. We're on day 8 of the challenge. Seismic, I actually already posted on our main YouTube channel and on my Instagram and on the Unveil. This was Seismic, and we're working on tomorrow's prompt, which I'm actually already almost done with. I was working on this a little bit this weekend. But, you know, I've talked about before on these streams how it's important with these challenges to kind of get ahead of, you know, if you're done and you have more time to do another day, sometimes it's helpful to do 2 days in one day, because, you know, like this weekend, I was busy. I had things I had to do this weekend. I had a friend's birthday party and, you know, just general weekend errands and chores to get done. And I also just wanted some time to not be drawing, so I didn't really work on... I worked a little bit on this one, actually. But for the most part, I wasn't as productive as I had been during the week. And it was fine because I was ahead of the schedule, so I was able to post today. But now I have to finish this one for tomorrow, and then hopefully I can get Wednesday done too, so that I can continue to stay ahead of it. Get our videos out, and keep up with the challenge so I don't fall too far behind, because that does happen sometimes. I do tend to fall behind on these challenges because it's a lot of work, so you gotta stay ahead of it. But yeah, I've been trying to figure out which techniques I prefer, and I'm having a hard time vocalizing it, but I'll try to talk about it a little bit more when I start on the next phase of the, or when I start on the next illustration, and I'll try to explain what I've been discovering about myself and how I illustrate, and some techniques that I find really help me get work done faster and make work that I am happier with. those are the two goals with this month's challenge. No, it will not be a problem at all if you work traditionally, you know, on paper with pencil or ink or paint or whatever, however you like to work. You can absolutely submit to the challenge. You can submit on the Discord. You can submit to Unveil. Just make sure you take a nice photograph or a scan if you have access to something that can scan your work. I always say this to people, you know, traditional medium is very, very important. You know, and I talked about this on one of our last streams. And anytime I have an excuse to show these artists, I will. Wiley Beckert, one of my favorite illustrators. She does a lot of work, but I know her from Magic the Gathering. And she works traditionally. She works with pencil, colored pencil. I think sometimes like ink and watercolor too, but I think mostly pencil and watercolor. Pencil and colored pencil. But this is all traditional. And so obviously I don't know exactly what her technique is for scanning in her work. But she, you know, this is mass produced and printed in Magic the Gathering card artwork. So, you know, it's absolutely possible to work traditionally. And the word traditional is the operative word there, because, you know, this is the start of illustration. This is how illustrations were done up until very recently. And it is absolutely possible for you to scan in your work at high. I mean, look at that. Look at all the detail. So she probably has a very high resolution scanner. It's probably very expensive. It's part of her industry, part of her work. But I mean, you know, it's all pencil. And so it's definitely very possible. But, you know, I always tell artists to make sure you present it well. Like, don't just take like a picture on your phone with like poor lighting. Like, if you don't have a scanner, that's fine. But I remember when I was in high school and I was putting together my college portfolio to apply to colleges, to apply to art school. You know, my work was all traditional. I didn't work digitally back then. So my teacher helped me photograph them. And what she did was she put them on the floor in a very well lit, I mean, we were in a classroom, right? So nice, very well lit from above. And she got up on a chair with a nice camera. And she positioned the chair so that she wasn't casting a shadow over the illustration, right, over the piece on the floor, so that the shadow was behind her. And she took her camera and she zoomed in so it was just the image. You know, you didn't get the floor. And then we went onto the computer and we cropped it and straightened it out and everything. And we adjusted some of the lights and stuff so that it looked the way it does in real life. But it's very possible to upload your work digitally, even if you're working traditionally. Just, you know, there's a kind of an extra step, you know, making sure that you, and honestly, you kind of have to do that with digital artwork too, because when you upload your digital artwork to certain websites, you know, the way, or, you know, different screens and stuff, the brightness, the saturation, the contrast and stuff might shift depending on how different people's phones look and stuff. And, well, there's really nothing you can do about that. But it's always a good idea to go into something that edits, you know, light, color, contrast and stuff. I mean, a lot of phones just do that these days. Like, you can literally edit that kind of stuff on your smartphone if you have one. But yes, don't feel limited by working traditionally. I absolutely encourage people to work traditionally. I mean, some people might say that you have to learn how to work digitally to work in the industry, but I mean, I just showed you an illustrator that works works traditionally, and she's in the industry. Another really great traditional illustrator who I also know from Magic the Gathering. Again, this is gouache and watercolor, I believe, on paper, on, you know, on canvas. This is not a print. This is her original piece. So, you know, it is very much possible to make. I mean, think about it. I mean, this is how most illustrations were made for a very long time. And, you know, just because you're working traditionally doesn't mean that you can't participate in challenges like this. It is absolutely possible. And working traditionally is very important because all of the techniques that are applied, not all of the techniques, but a lot of techniques that are applied in digital illustration come from traditional illustration. So if you can understand mediums like pencil and ink and watercolor and oil and acrylic, your digital work will be better for it. So I absolutely encourage people to work traditionally. I think it's great exercise. I think it helps you get a better appreciation for the process of illustration. You know, sometimes digital artwork can kind of abbreviate some techniques that are essential in traditional illustration, and you know, even though that might save you some time, it can, you know, handicap your understanding of the art form in general. Excuse me. Oh, you know what I don't have? I thought I was all set up and ready for this stream, but I don't have my water bottle. So give me uno momentum. I'm going to grab my water bottle. Oh yeah, there's a big doggy right here. Let's see that dog. Oh, good girl. Yeah, that's a good. Good girl. All right. I am back. So yeah, we're gonna finish up this guy here. This is another automaton design for day 8. No, day 9, I guess, right? Yeah, day 9. Yeah, today's the 8th. Okay. Usually these challenges help me keep track of the days, but sometimes I'm still an idiot. Excuse me. Yeah, that's like a YouTube thing. The more you chat in a given stream, you get like a ranking for it. I guess it's like an incentivizer to get people to actually use the chat. It's a little silly though. Just a little bit silly. I guess it's nice, as if you think about it that way, you know, it benefits everybody. It benefits the people watching the stream, it benefits the actual streamer. Feel free to chat. It does help. It does help with the algorithm if there's engagement in chat, and it's just more engaging for me. For me, if for no one else, makes it more interesting for me. I like having people to talk to while I'm working. It's part of why I like streaming. I like to be able to have conversations with other artists or just people who enjoy art. Talk about things. I'm like, so this weekend I watched Sonic 3 with my wife, and I feel like I know people like that movie, so I don't wanna give my full critique, because I don't wanna, you know, if you enjoy the movie, that's fine. All I will say is it was really bad, and if I was a Sonic the Hedgehog fan, which I'm not, I would be really disappointed. But you know, maybe if I was a Sonic fan, I would like it more. I mean, I know a decent amount about Sonic the Hedgehog. I've played some Sonic games. You know, I know about Sonic Adventure 2 and and Shadow's origin story and all that. I just think that I would rather just play Sonic Adventure 2 than have to sit through that entire movie. But that's it. I'm not gonna, you know, I'm not gonna go off. I've done a lot. I spent like the whole weekend going off on Sonic 3. And I'm done. I don't need to go off anymore. Doing a Thunderbird for the Tempest prompt. I was going to do a Kaiju or a Goliath for this prompt, and I was kind of thinking like a giant bird, but I did two Kaiju designs in a row, so I was like, I should do another machine, just for my own sake, my own practice. I've been much happier with my monster designs than my robot designs so far this month. So I wanna spend a little bit more time with a robot design and try to make something. And I'm very happy with this one, how it's coming out so far. And I'm almost done with it, so. And then tomorrow's, well, the next day after tomorrow, day 11's prompt is Abyss, and I have an idea for that. Once I finish this on stream, I'll start working on that one because I'm excited. I'm excited for that one. I want to do some deep sea monsters. I always love doing deep sea monsters. Oh yeah, love Treasure Planet. Now that's a great movie. I would say it's an underappreciated movie. You know, people kind of overlook it, but I do think that more and more people have kind of I don't know. I guess it's one of those movies where if you ask like the average person, even like the average like Disney kid or Disney adult, I bet a lot of people don't really remember it. You know, like maybe people my age would be like, oh, yeah, I kind of remember that. I think I went to go see it in theaters. But, you know, it's not like The Lion King or even, like, Hercules. I feel like Hercules weirdly doesn't get as much attention. You know, the Disney Hercules, the animated Disney Hercules movie. Like, that's a great movie. And people like it. I know people like it. It's not like Treasure Planet, where a lot of people haven't even heard of it. But it's also like still not quite as popular as a lot of other Disney movies from that time. You know, actually, Disney has been really insistent on making all of these, like, live action, or, in the case of The Lion King, just, like, hyper-realistic CGI, like, remakes of popular Disney movies. And, I mean, for the most part, people like them. I always find them so redundant. And, well, actually, I kind of like the Jungle Book one. I thought that was like a fun reinterpretation of the original Jungle Book story with like some characters from, recognizable character, types from the original Disney Jungle Book movie. But actually, I feel like Treasure Planet would be a great movie to adapt into a live-action movie. Now, I think it's a great movie animated, and it doesn't need a live-action adaptation. But I feel like if they made a live-action adaptation of Treasure Planet, they could be a little bit more... They could take more liberties with it. Like, I don't think people would remember it enough to be like, hey, that's not how the story goes. Like, they could make some changes to the writing or the plot in general so that it's a little bit... it works a little bit better as a live-action movie. But they could have some really cool special effects and... I think having real actors playing the character like Jim and Silver, I feel like, again, I don't think they have to make that movie, but if they're going to make live-action remakes of Disney movies, I feel like Treasure Planet would be a good option. I don't know. I mean, I don't think... it's an interesting question. Would I trust them? I don't know. I mean, it would depend on the director and the writer. And, I do think that... I don't think it would happen, because these live-action remakes of movies are always movies that are already popular for Disney. They wouldn't take an IP... because these decisions are not made based on, creative integrity. It's not like there's a director who's like, I really, really want to reimagine this world using a live-action medium. That's never the case. It's always like, they go through the numbers, and it's like, this movie would perform very well in theaters. Let's make live-action Lilo and Stitch. And, it just sort of rejuvenates the IP so that they can sell more Lilo and Stitch merchandise, because Lilo and Stitch is super marketable, because Stitch is so cute. He's like a little Pokemon, and people want to buy a little plushie or a beach towel or a t-shirt. So they wouldn't... it's just it wouldn't happen. If it was happening, I would feel optimistic, because already making a live-action interpretation, reimagining of Treasure Planet is already a creative risk. In a way. Not really, but for Disney, that's a creative risk. They are doing something that might not pay off for them financially, because I assume they want to make it just for the sake of making it. And I think that's how good movies are made. They're not made because the director or the writers or the production studio want to make a lot of money. They're made because there's a story that someone wants to tell, and they have a way to tell it, which could either be an animation or, live action or whatever. But the decisions that they make are made to support that initial decision to make a story. And if Disney was going to make a live-action remake of Treasure Planet, they might take more risks with it and make it into a more... use the medium of live-action film to, give us a cool new take on Treasure Planet. I mean, Treasure Planet itself is already a cool new take on Treasure Island. I mean, it's an old story that a lot of people already knew. In fact, Disney, I'm pretty sure, made a Treasure Island movie, back in the 60s or the 50s, that was live-action. The story of Treasure Island is a kind of evergreen story. People like that story, not just because of the swashbuckling pirates, but because of the sweet relationship between Captain Silver and the young boy Jim. So there's a lot that you could do there, and I think that live action And, the level of, CGI that we have in the modern era could make for some really cool visuals. I mean, the original movie already has really cool visuals, and they use CGI in the original movie, too. It's not all hand-drawn animation. A lot of, like, the ships and the environments are all computer-generated, and it looks cool. And honestly, at that time, using CGI was a risk. CGI was such a... it hadn't really reached the same level of popularity especially in the animation industry as it has today. Although, actually, when did that come out? Like 2001, 2002? It might have actually been post Shrek. 2002. That's post Shrek, right? Yeah. So, I guess that's not true. I guess CGI animation was already pretty popular. That's post-Shrek, that's post-Toy Story, post-Monsters... no, Monsters, Inc. It's post-Nemo, I think. I think Nemo is 2001. No. I think it goes Monsters, Inc., then Nemo. ...2001, yeah. And then I think Nemo's like 2004. 2003. Well, it's post-Monsters, Inc. I don't know. I think it would be really weird. Yeah, I mean, if I saw a trailer for Treasure Planet and all of the really bizarre, cool alien designs from the movie, like, intentionally made... Let's not forget, like, the fact that they used this cool, like, steampunk sci-fi setting for Treasure Planet really elevated a lot of plot and theming for the movie. The idea of a ragtag, scurvy group of pirates is elevated a lot in kind of a fun, interesting, novel way by making them inhuman, by making them weird, crazy-looking aliens. That helps you feel like, this is kind of a weird, scary, untrustworthy crew. No two crew members on that ship looked the same. They were all completely different. And, like, some of the jokes were a little annoying. If they did remake Treasure Planet, I'd want them to cut Ben. I would want them to really just get rid of that character. I don't know if anyone else feels the same way, but as much as I love Treasure Planet, the third act of that movie, when Ben shows up, the little talking robot that's like the map, his name is like some acronym, something navigation. That character sucks. He contributes very little to the movie, and he's just annoying comic relief for the sake of annoying comic relief, and it doesn't work. He's just annoying. So if they did remake that movie, there's something right off the bat that they could do differently that I think would improve the movie drastically. But again, I don't think they would do that, and I think if they did do that, people would be like, why did they get rid of Ben? And, I feel like there's a good reason to get rid of Ben. Ben fucking sucks. Ben is not funny. Ben is annoying. There's already, like, an annoying sidekick character, and Morph is cute. Morph doesn't talk. He has a little slapstick. He has some, like, funny little moments. He's actually useful in the plot, too. Like, he does things. He progresses the plot. And, he's just more charming. But Ben is just fucking annoying. Really what I want out of Disney in the modern day is just to create some cool news stories. I like Zootopia. Actually, Zootopia is a good example of a Disney movie. But Zootopia 1 and 2, I like. That's a new Disney story. I mean, well, actually, the original Zootopia is, like, barely new anymore. That's actually... Wow, when did the original Zootopia come out? I'm pretty sure that was when I was in college. So, like... Is it, like, 2016? That's, like, barely a new movie anymore. Yeah, 2016. Okay, so that's not really a new Disney movie anymore. That is actually 10 years old. Kinda crazy. But I think that was the last... You know, and I like Zootopia too. Zootopia, the sequel to Zootopia, which is a new movie, that one was also good. I liked that one. So those are some nice new worlds and stories that Disney has created that I think are, you know, good storytelling, interesting visuals, funny writing, strong characters, and fun for the whole family. And isn't that what Disney's all about? Of course, nowadays Disney, anything that is mildly successful just becomes like marketed into oblivion, where it's just like, I don't even like, keep getting these ads for like Disney cruises, and like I hate the cruise industry in general. Like it just seems like the most exorbitant, you know, self-interested kind of activity to do. It's just, it's so bad for the environment. It's kind of dangerous, and it's just like, I don't know. Me personally, why wouldn't you rather just like go somewhere where you can like walk around where there aren't like the idea of being trapped on a boat with like thousands of strangers seems awful to me. It's like being in a city but you can't go anywhere private. Everything, there are people everywhere. And you can't leave. Like once you've gone to every corner of the boat, that's it. You're stuck there until the boat docks somewhere. I don't like that. But anyway, I've been seeing these ads for Disney cruises, and they just have these really fucking scary, like Judy Hopps and Nick Wilde, like people in costumes, and I'm like, this is really weird. I don't want to meet these characters in real life. And I get it's not for me, it's for kids, but like also like, I didn't like that kind of shit when I was a kid either. I could tell it was weird. I was like, I know there's just an adult in there. There's just an adult human, and like maybe they're giving it their all. Maybe they're really acting their heart out, and that's fun for them. But it's just like, it's weird. It just turns these characters that people really like for a reason, because they exist in this fictional setting where their dialogue is all scripted and they're part of a world that is really cohesive and well thought out. And then you just kind of like pull them out of that world and just kind of put them in front of people and be like, look, here are those characters you like. Look, it's Nick Wilde and Judy Hopps. You love those guys. And it's like, I don't like them implicitly. Like, it's not like I just like, I love them because they exist. I don't want to shake hands with Nick Wilde. It's just another product. It just becomes another product. Something you can sell. Now, to be fair, I've never been on a cruise because I have moral objections to them. Maybe I would like it. I don't know. I think I'd rather just go to a hotel somewhere on the ocean. I mean, I can't afford any of this to begin with, so like, it's not even a problem for me. You know, I'm not going on any cruises anytime soon. I'm not staying at any fancy hotels anytime soon. I like fancy hotels. I like a fancy hotel that I can leave, you know, that I can walk somewhere else and like explore a city and have other things to do. I feel like cruises are really for people who are like kind of afraid of traveling. Like they don't want to be somewhere where they have to like interact with other people. And they can just sort of be like surrounded by like Mickey Mouse and, you know, wait staff that just serve you all the kinds of foods that you're familiar with, even if you're in another part of the world. I definitely understand the appeal of wanting to be on the ocean, you know, and traveling the world. That seems really cool. I just wouldn't want to do it on a giant skyscraper of a boat. That's just so destructive. The amount of fuel they consume alone. Not to mention just the amount of resources that go into building those things. And then just the impact they have as they're cutting through the water. You know, hundreds of thousands of tons. That sounds like too much. A lot of weight of boat. You know, cutting through the water, disrupting all kinds of different ecosystems. You know, from the open oceans to shallow coasts. And it's just so ugly, you know? When I lived in Boston, in the harbor, they had these, you know, cruises would land in the harbor there. And they were just so ugly. Like, they're just these massive skyscrapers just parked in the middle of the beautiful harbor. And you go down to the water and you want to, like, enjoy a little peace and serenity, and there's just this giant fucking boat. Between 50,000 and 125,000 tons. Okay, so yeah, hundreds of tons is a little bit of an exaggeration, but it is at least 100 tons sometimes. I was like thousands of tons. That doesn't sound right. That sounds like we're getting to celestial proportions. Still though, that's a lot of fucking boat. But I'm done. I'm done ranting about cruise ships. I don't want to be a hater, you know? I don't want to hate on things that people like. Well, I kind of do. I want people to understand, like, if you're going to go on a cruise, you should at least understand the environmental impact you're having while you're supporting that industry. I do believe in ethical tourism. I don't know this much about, like, I don't know that much about this side of cruise industries too, but I do know that a lot of countries that rely on a lot of tourisms have their own issues. You know, an economy that is so reliant on international tourism can cause problems for the local community. You know, both short term and long term. But I don't really know that much about that side of it. Just feel like, you know, the world is not... It's not an individual's plaything. It's not just, you know, something that you can use to enjoy yourself, you know, without greater consequence to the rest of the world. And as long as you're aware of it, you know, I mean, I can't stop you. If you're aware of the downsides to that kind of tourism and you don't care, alright, that's your MO. You know, I'm probably not going to change your mind. Or maybe you have a counter argument for me, because I don't really know. The only counter argument I've ever heard to cruise ships is just they're fun, and you know, it's a good business and it can help support tourism-based, you know, cities and countries. And like, yeah, that's true. I mean, that's a lot of arguments. I hate that argument, you know. And in any case, if it's just like, oh well, it's good for business. Well, that's stupid, because in 500 years, if humans are gone extinct, it doesn't matter how good your business has done. And even more short term, I mean, like, I don't know. I just don't think that every person's decisions in life should be made by what does or doesn't do well in business. But that's just me, and I'm pretty broke, so if you don't like being broke, don't listen to me. Largest cruise ship in the world weighs 250,800 tons. Royal Caribbean, icon of the sea. That is crazy. How do I spell the name of day 7's Goliath? Oh, did I not spell it out? It's, I believe, Kutanga. I don't know. I'm pretty sure it's written there with the illustration where I posted it on Unveil or on my Instagram. I guess if you just watch the video, then yeah, it's not spelled out. But yeah, if you look on the Unveil or my Instagram, I do spell it out. I'll spell it out for you. Something I've been learning about this Kaijune challenge, sort of less about art specifically and more about running a YouTube channel, is in the past, I have assumed that the information that I put out to my fans reaches all of my fans. Because I always get confused where I'm like, wait, why do you not know this? Like, I've explained this. But, I don't know, the way the YouTube algorithm works, like, even if I post the same thing 5 times in a row, not all of my fans are going to see it. So really what I've been trying to do during this month is post as often as I can, not just videos, but, community posts and stuff, in as many different places as I can, so that, I can get the information out, the information about the challenge and my designs and other people's designs and stuff. Because, it's weird. It happens where, like, people just don't see the things that I post. And not because they don't want to see it, just because, the YouTube algorithm is weird that way. So I've been trying to post as often as possible in as many different places as possible. Because the other thing is, for a while when I started running my YouTube channel, I was like, I have to be a little bit more discreet about the things that I'm working on, because I don't want, like, spoilers, otherwise people aren't gonna watch my videos. But, like, I don't think things I post get really, they're not seen by enough people to really impact the viewership of our videos. Katanga and YouTube's captions. Oh, yeah, well, those are just auto-generated captions. To be honest, I'm surprised it even got that close. But yeah, if you check out the Instagram or the Unveil or even the community posts. I know I didn't post the story for day 7 on the community post because I was trying to get people to go watch the video. But it is still on the Unveil and on Instagram. The community link in the live stream description is still broken. Oh, wait. Oh, let me, can I change that while I'm streaming? I don't think I can. I think I know what the problem is for that. Because for some reason when I copied the link in the... let me mute this. Yeah, hold on. Can I... No, I can't edit it while it's streaming. Shit, how am I going to remember to do this? Yes, I know what the problem is for that. When I copied the link, it, like, added in... like an exclamation mark or something at the end of it. Like, it included that in the link. But if you go to the main channel, that link should work. I'll make sure to fix that. Yeah, someone pointed that out on, when I had first posted it on the main channel. And I'm surprised, and I've never really had that problem before. But something got messed up. Multiple times, actually, while I was trying to copy the link. I have to say, the thing I like about these certain projects is their alternate versions of certain things that happen differently between their worlds and our own. I'm not quite sure what you're trying to say there, but I if I'm understanding correctly, you like the different interpretations of the different prompts, which is something that I really like about these challenges too. That's why I like to try to get as many different people as possible participating in these kinds of challenges, because it's really cool to see how like one prompt can be interpreted so many different ways. The one prompt that I kind of wish I hadn't included was equine, because that's just so specific, and just, you know, everyone ended up making. I mean, there were still a lot of different kinds of horse kaiju, and some people did some some horse machinery, some horse mechs and automatons and stuff. But most people just did kaijus. And it's just like, it was funny because when I was going through the submissions, and you know, we got to day 3, I think was equine, and there were so many cool ones, and I was like, I want to make all of these canon, but I was like, they're gonna be like 7 different horse kaijus in this world. Oh, I love the Lisa Frank aesthetic. I don't think I saw that one. Did you submit that to the Discord of the Unveil? I don't remember seeing the Lisa Frank Kaiju. I'd love to see that though. That sounds pretty awesome. I love a bit of color for a challenge like this, you know? I'll have to go looking for that. I love getting fun and experimental with colors. You know, it's for a challenge like this, I think a lot of people, you know, when you think giant monsters, they're usually not very colorful. You know, they try to go for like scary, which is also very cool. But it's kind of fun to subvert that a little bit and do something a little unconventional. Yeah, actually, I'm glad that comes across. I wanted it to kind of be, like the legs to look kind of avian, but also I gave them these kind of like hooves, just because I thought that looked, I don't know, I just thought it looked cool. Originally, the body was a lot more humanoid, but as I designed the kind of wings, I was like, I kind of just, I want the focus to be on the wings, and then have the legs be just like, look really weird, and very strange. Like, I like designing humanoids, but it's fun to do something that I really wanted to play with silhouette this month. That's sort of the other thing that I'm really trying to practice with. And like, you know, you can definitely make a humanoid silhouette very interesting. But I feel like if I really want to practice with silhouette and go crazy with it, I got to do some things beyond humanoid, and it's still, I guess this one isn't really humanoid at all. There's really nothing human about this one. But my initial sketches for it did look a lot more humanoid. I was talking about this on an earlier stream, but I've been emulating a lot of the design conventions from the Final Fantasy series, with specifically the robots, because the robots in Final Fantasy, you know, the Magitech, they have a very cool look. It's this sort of like blend of, you know, sort of organic shapes, you know, that feel like they're part of a living thing, you know, with mechanical parts. And I like that sort of hybridization of two very different kinds of design. Making my Thunderbird right now, having trouble with the wings. So, when drawing bird wings, drawing any kind of wings, it's really important to understand exactly how bird wing anatomy works. Fortunately, birds are vertebrates, so their internal body structure is very similar to our own. And their arms have all the same bones in it that our arms do. So a human arm has a shoulder blade. It has a humerus. It has an elbow. It has a tibia and a fibia. And then it has all the little carpals, metacarpals, and phalanges, right? Pretty poorly drawn human arm, but you get it. So all of those bones exist in a bird wing too. They have a shoulder blade, they have a humerus, they have an elbow, they have a tibia and a fibia, and they have metatarsals and metacarpals, and usually, depending on the bird, all of their phalanges are scrunched up into a kind of one little bone right there. And depending on the bird too, these bones will be stretched or shortened. And now the tricky part, so when you put meat on them bones, so let's make the bones blue. Alright, make them a little brighter too. So we want to put meat on them bones. You know, the actual meat of a bird wings, think about like a chicken wing, you know, without any feathers on it, it looks kind of weird. You know, it kind of looks like this. More or less. And then, when you put feathers on it, depending again on the type of bird, you're drawing a giant thunderbird, so I would look at like eagle wings, owl wings, large flighted birds, maybe like an Andean condor or an albatross, some of the largest flighted birds that exist on Earth today. But they have different layers of feathers that they use for flight. And, you know, if you are drawing something like an eagle, they have these long feathers that come out here. And all of these different types of feathers have names. I can't remember exactly what they're called. But they have feathers that come out here. They have feathers that come down here. They have feathers that come down here. And then there are layers. More feathers on top of that, more feathers on top of that. Again, it depends on the kind of bird. But, you know, they layer down from the actual muscle and the skin underneath the feathers. So you just want to really understand where a bird's wing bends. You know, like a human arm bends at the elbow. So, you know, if you were drawing it folded, you know, it would bend kind of like this. Right? And when it's stretched out, you know, come out like this. Right? So yeah, just I mean, it's one of those things where you can do it a lot with practice, you know, just looking at birds and how their wings work. But I do think a lot of the time when people struggle with wings, what they don't realize is that, you know, you have a pretty good reference for a bird wing right here, provided you haven't been attacked by a shark or got your arm stuck in a garbage compactor. This has all of the same bones as a bird wing. And, you know, if you think about it, you know, even if you're pretending to, like, flap your wings, you know, it's the same thing. It's a lot of, well, it's not exactly the same thing, because birds' arms and joints, they function a little bit differently than ours. But when a bird flaps its wings, if it's a flighted bird, its wings more or less stay straight. You know, they don't actually do like this. They don't bend their elbows. They are only bending their elbows when their wings are folded, right? So when, you know, when they're in flight, you know, you imagine the arm. Oops. You imagine the arm and the bones would look like this. That. and then all those feathers would move accordingly. So that's like some basic understanding of bird wings. I do think that having a strong reference is really important because, again, like, different birds have different kinds of wings. And if you're doing like a very large bird that can fly, you know, Andean condor or king condor, you know, gives you a good idea of what kind of feathers are used to get an animal that heavy off the ground. But again, like, if you look at this, like, if we took this image and put it in here, no, allow paste. And we looked at this wing, you know, you can almost see it. You can almost see where the bones would be. So there's the tibia and the fibia. Here's the humerus, and then up here is the little the carpals and the metacarpals. Was I saying tarsals and metatarsals before? Because those are feet bones. Those are toe bones. But, you know, that's there's the bones, and then the muscles, and, you know, the actual skin and stuff. Well, that's not a good color. Would be like that. You know, if you took all of the feathers off of this bird, you know, that's what you would be looking at. And then there are multiple... This is a low-resolution image, but you can see there are multiple layers of feathers, you know. And they all serve different purposes. There are feathers that go all the way down there. These feathers are longer here. And then there's these feathers that come out like this. But that's the basic gist. Hope that helps. Yeah, that's a good point too. You can definitely stylize and abstract feathers. You don't need to draw every single individual feathers. Like, let me see if I can find a good example of this. Okay, the first thing that came to my mind, because I've been playing Marvel Rivals, is Angela from Marvel. Well, she doesn't actually have her wing. Where's her wing? Okay, let me look up something else, because none of these images actually has her wing in it. Let's do, let's just do MTG bird. Find some nice paintings. So, like, here's a good example. You know, these wings, this isn't really a bird per se, but, you know, you can see how they referenced bird anatomy and sort of stylized it to make it a little less like a real bird, but also a little bit more concise when they paint it. This one, too, like, these feathers might not actually work for flight. I don't really know. I don't know enough about birds, but they're heavily referenced and then stylized a little bit. And, like, a lot of these shapes are kind of like, they're not each individual feather. You know, these, you can see each of these feathers individually, but then you get in here and they kind of all kind of mesh together a little bit, and they're distinguished by little bits of light and darkness. Here's another one where the feathers are... The wings are mostly a singular paint. There's a little bit of light coming through individual feathers. You know, you can do all sorts of fun things with it. Combine different kinds of bird wings. Yeah, this is a good example of kind of what I was trying to find. Like, you know, they're just using light, really, to distinguish these feathers. Like the Monty Python secret lair. Hey there, this is for day 9. This is tomorrow's illustration. This is Tempest making a flying automaton. This is actually going to be connected to the lore of Katanga, the day 7 illustration, the giant dinosaur-looking kaiju, or Goliath, that came out of the royal in Africa. These were the flying automatons that were able to eventually destroy it. Excuse me. Kind of going back to what we were talking about, illustrating bird wings and stuff. You know, it's... depending on what kind of illustrator you would like to be, it really is important to understand more than just illustration. I think that really good illustrators have a lot of interests in a lot of different fields. You know, either science or, you know, culture, movie, films, you know, comic books, really just anything that wants, you know, makes you want to learn things. Because the more you know, the more you understand about our world, the more that you can create, you know, that is not of our world. If you want to create something that doesn't exist, you have to understand what does exist. You know, you have to be able to understand how animals work and how geology works, you know, tectonic plates, and you don't have to be a scientist, you don't have to be an expert on any of these things, but it definitely helps when you're doing something like illustrating a bird wing to really understand how bird anatomy works. And it's cool, like that, learning about that stuff is just, it's just cool. And I think in general, people should want to learn things. People should want to figure new things out, even if it doesn't seem relevant or important or like it will benefit your work or your career or help you make more money. It's just, it's important to know things. And, you know, for a long time, for my whole life, you know, humanity has been in a place where we can just look things up. You know, we have basically an encyclopedia of all human knowledge at our fingertips. And it's very easy to get information. As funny and as vague as that sounds, but you know, I think on top of that, there's you know, you have to be responsible. You have to know how to learn things. That sounds a little silly, but what I mean by that is, you know, you shouldn't just trust the first thing that you read on the internet. I mean, Wikipedia is almost always factual and accurate information, but it's always worth cross-referencing your information. You know, you learn something here, and then you corroborate it on a different website. Or maybe you find an actual book that has information in it, and then you say, oh, how much of this is true? And you don't even have to be, like, skeptical. You could just be like, I want to learn more about it. Let me find another website that has maybe more information on it. And maybe that website has different information that maybe contradicts some of the other information you learned, and you're like, well, who's telling the truth here? And you need to find a third source. And, you know, maybe eventually you get to a point where it's like, oh, maybe no one really knows the answer to this. Maybe I need to draw some conclusions myself. But it's good to know things, you know? I mean, yeah, like Wikipedia, sometimes there are people on Wikipedia that are intentionally putting fake information in there, and that's why I'm saying you should always double check your sources. But yeah, for the most part, Wikipedia does have accurate information on it. It might not have the most up-to-date information, but it's a great starting point, and it is reliable. I mean, when I was younger, teachers would always say, oh, don't rely on Wikipedia. And they're right, you should not rely on Wikipedia for all of your information. But it is reliable. It is a reliable source. I feel like there's a lot of sort of weird, like, anti-knowledge propaganda almost, where people are trying to make the general public feel less confident in, you know, sources of information that are actually accurate. And so now everyone's like questioning, like, oh, this isn't right. I have to get my information from this person instead. But really, you know, as much as I do kind of agree, like, yes, your all of your information shouldn't just come from Wikipedia. But also, Wikipedia does have a lot of information on it, and a lot of it is true. And again, sometimes it's incomplete, sometimes it's outdated, sometimes it's a little biased. But that's why I'm saying you have to be able to know how to, you know, double check your work, you know, how to look into multiple different sources. You know, even if you have, you know, a written, like, just because it's written in a book doesn't make it more factual either. Like, even if you're just reading a book, you should still double check and see if other sources can corroborate that information that you're learning. You know, any source created by a human or created by a robot in this day and age could be wrong. So it's important that you, as a human being, have the skills to say, all right, let me find a different source and see if this source agrees with this information that I'm being presented. But I really think that it's dangerous to say things like Wikipedia are just filled with false information. Yes, anyone can edit a Wikipedia page. But that also means that anyone can edit a Wikipedia page. So if some dumbass... Trust me, I was 13 once. I would go on Wikipedia with my friends and we would edit those pages and put stupid information on them. Guess what? The next day that information was changed back to what it was. And, like, people want the correct information to be out there. As much as there are a bunch of 13-year-olds or other kinds of people that, for multiple different reasons, don't want you to know real information... It doesn't mean that there aren't also a lot of people who are very intelligent and knowledgeable on different subjects and are working hard to make sure that information is accessible to everyone. So yes, double check, triple check, you know, find multiple sources. It's always important. But also don't feel like Wikipedia is just this cesspool of false information. Because it's not. There's a lot of real, accurate, genuine information on Wikipedia. I think Wikipedia is a very, very important milestone in human civilization. We are able to, not as a country, not as, you know, a nation, but as a population of human beings, as an entire species, we are able to take all of the information that we have acquired over thousands of years and consolidate it into a easily accessible, free resource that anyone can use. Now, I think that's very, very important. And yes, there are some people who want you to have wrong information. So you do have to be skeptical. You have to have some common sense. You have to look into things beyond just reading a Wikipedia article. But Wikipedia is a great place to start. I hit the Wikipedia page for Santa Claus too, to have my friends named in it, and they threatened to ban me. Yeah, I mean, Wikipedia is pretty heavily moderated, especially nowadays, because there are a lot of people who want to have false information out, and not false information that's harmless, like putting your friend's name in the Santa Claus 2 Wikipedia page, because that really, it's stupid, and yes, it's false information, but that's not going to hurt anybody. Unless you're, like, doxing your friend on Wikipedia, which... Don't do that. It's kind of funny, but don't do that. I don't want to be on record as saying you should do that. Don't do that. I don't think that's what you were doing, but... don't do that. I'm laughing, but don't do that. But yeah, there are some people who are, you know, intentionally trying to spread information for malicious reasons. So you gotta watch out for those people. And that's why they have heavy moderation on Wikipedia. I mean, think about it. If there's heavy moderation on, like, a subreddit for, you know, some anime gacha game, imagine how many people are monitoring Wikipedia to make sure that accurate information is there. No, that's funny. I mean, I'm not going to say that that's not funny. Putting your friend's name in the Wikipedia entry for the Santa Claus 2, that's funny. That's all in good fun. But yeah, there you go. I mean, Wikipedia won't even joke around with that kind of stuff. Even something as benign as that, Wikipedia is on top of it. Are there computers in this universe behind the whole besides the whole technology, because of the whole technology boom and everything? You know, I haven't really thought about that. I do think that this alternate timeline for humanity in this alternate world history, that obviously technology has advanced even beyond what we have today in the modern world. Now, I don't want to spoil anything, but there are reasons beyond just international cooperation that have led to these advancements in technology. And I'm going to slowly divulge that more throughout the month. And I mean, that could take many different forms. I'm not exactly sure what I'm going to do with that, per se, but, excuse me, I would say there are things like computers, you know, machines that do calculations, that are able to sort and consolidate information. You know, maybe like the most primitive, like no one's playing video games. Like there isn't a Game Boy Advance, like a steampunk Game Boy in this universe. But I would say that technology is at least advanced to the point where there is some form of, you know, autonomous information sharing or storing invention. I feel like this needs a little more contrast. I think I should bring in some darker darks for some of these shadows. Yeah, I mean, once again, there is false information out there. Any source of information has the potential to be inaccurate. There is no one source of information that is 100% guaranteed to be accurate, and Wikipedia is no exception to that. But news sources, scientific journals, websites like Twitter or Instagram, all of these things, to an extent, they are not 100% regulated. There is no guarantee that information is always going to be accurate. And, again, even the information that is on Wikipedia might not be accurate. That's why I'm saying you have to double check. You have to check out multiple sources. I'm sure there are multiple different stories about how Wikipedia has false information that never got changed. But that doesn't mean that we should discredit Wikipedia as a source, a viable source of information. I'm positive. I'm positive if you went on Wikipedia and you looked up some niche information about Pokemon or something, there's probably something wrong. There's probably something inaccurate. Maybe some smaller, like you're saying, maybe smaller countries that don't have as much of a reputable source of information to tell their history. Maybe there is some biased information on there from either someone who has a vested interest in spreading that misinformation, and that is very, very dangerous. And there need to be people who are able to check in on that and fix it. And for the most part, there are. But yes, of course. I mean, Wikipedia has articles on every topic known to mankind. So of course, some of that information will be wrong, and there will be people who are spreading misinformation on purpose with malicious intent. Yes, I 100% agree with you. But again, we can't just say, oh, okay, this article was wrong about Wikipedia, so never trust it. Because I think the danger in that is when people say that, are they offering you an alternative? Are they saying this is the site source where you get all of the correct information? Because if they are, that is also wrong. Because once again, there is no one source that is going to have all of the correct information. And if someone tells you, don't look at Wikipedia, then you say, okay, well, where should I get my information from? And if they go, well, I don't know, then that's not helpful. They're not offering you an alternative. If they say, oh, get all of your information from this site, then you also have to be skeptical, because how do you know that that website is true? If they say, look at actual journals and papers and scientific studies concerning what it is that you're trying to look up, absolutely. Yes, I would agree with you on that. And if you're not doing a scientific study, then look into, if you want to learn more about comic book history, there are plenty of books. Again, books are probably going to be biased. Books are going to be missing information. Books are going to have incorrect information. So you have to read multiple books. Absolutely. Do that too. But if you want to start your research somewhere, you're just I'm not sure about this one thing, how do I spell this word? What is the origin of this phrase? How come this animal, has that color feathers? Wikipedia is a great place to start. But then, do more research. That's all I'm saying about Wikipedia. And yes, in school, they tell you that. It's all fake. But that's not true. It's just not true. I think what they're trying to impress on you in school is don't use one source for everything. And that is absolutely true. You should not just use one source for everything. Whether it's Wikipedia or, some journal published by one, scientific study, you always got to find multiple sources. And that's what they try to teach you in school. Hopefully that's what they were trying to teach you in school. And the reason why I feel so adamant in impressing on you guys that Wikipedia is not just useless information is that in this day and age on the internet, a lot of people are getting their information from, aggregate AI, from news sources that are incredibly biased and completely unfactual, trying to push some sort of agenda that they have, to benefit a very small amount of people. And in general, just individuals on the internet who like to spread information about things like history. If you're interested in human history, geological history, geographical history, there are so many people on the internet who's giants are real, this dinosaur is still alive, aliens built the pyramids. And those are the kinds of people who will say, don't trust Wikipedia. And people believe them. But again, there is no grounds for trusting some stranger on TikTok over Wikipedia. Why? Why would you believe this person over Wikipedia? Because they said thousands of people believe this? That's not reputable information. I don't know why that's better than Wikipedia. And I'm not saying that's what you're saying, person in the chat who is saying, you don't always trust Wikipedia. And again, I agree with you. Don't always trust Wikipedia. Wikipedia is not always correct, but it's also one of the most reputable sources for information at your disposal at any given time. So don't feel like you can't trust Wikipedia ever. Trust yourself, trust your own common sense, but use Wikipedia over a lot of other different sources. There are way worse places to get your information than Wikipedia. If you're writing a scientific paper, you absolutely cannot just cite Wikipedia. That is not correct. But that's the other thing. I mean, Wikipedia does cite all of the sources for their information. Again, it depends on the article. Some are more thorough than others. But for the most part, they do say where they got their information from. And then you, as the individual looking up this information, it is on you to go look at those sources and corroborate those sources and determine for yourself if those sources are trustworthy. That's the other. I think a lot of people want information as quickly as possible. Like we live in a culture of immediate gratification. And so doing the work to find out information about any given topic requires effort. And people don't want to do that. Like, I'll give you an example. A couple months ago, my dad sent me this picture of this guy balancing on this I-beam with an old-fashioned camera. And he said, this is the guy who took the photo, the iconic workers building the Empire State Building. So everyone knows this photo, right? If you're an American, you know this photo. So this is a real photo. This was taken years ago during the construction of the Empire State Building. And there is some discourse about who actually took this photo. There is a singular person that is credited for taking this photo, and there's a lot of information about that person. And his family has cataloged all of his work, and they have confirmed that he is the one who took these photos. So that is widely accepted to be who has taken this photo. And my dad sent me that picture, and immediately I felt like, it's kind of weird. Because it just who would have taken that photo of this guy taking the photo? It just doesn't seem like something that would have happened in this era of history. And so I dug into it a little bit more, and I started on Wikipedia. And so on the Wikipedia page, who took this picture? All right. Evidence emerged indicating it might have been taken by Charles C. Ebbets, but it was later found that other photographers had been present on the shot as well. Many claims have been made regarding the identities of the men in the image, though only a few have been definitively identified. So, honestly, this was about as far as I read. Then I went on the Wikipedia article about Charles Clyde Ebbets, and I started reading a little bit more about him. I found out a little bit more about his history as a photographer. Then I left Wikipedia, and I went to his family's website. So if you look up Charles C. Ebbets, this was the photo that my dad sent me, by the way. And I still don't know if this is real or not. It seems strange. But anyway, I went to this website, which is run by his descendants. I think it's his daughter or something. And again, this could be biased information, but I did a little reading here. And what I found interesting about this website is that this photo of this guy balancing on this I-beam, is not anywhere on this website. So I found that suspicious too. But anyway, we don't have to spend a lot of time on this, but it's just an example of how you can fact-check information using Wikipedia as a starting point. I got to learn the name Charles C. Ebbets. Charles C. Ebbets is a real person. He did take photographs in the 30s and 40s and 50s, and there is good reason to believe that he did take that photo, though it's not entirely 100% true. And as opposed to just finding that image, because like this is a cool image, like this is, whether or not it's real, this is a cool image, and it's fun to sort of imagine that this is sort of like the behind the scenes of that iconic photo shoot, right? Because a lot of people have asked that, you know, when they see this photo, people are like, well, who took the photo? And that's sort of been a question in the back of people's minds for a really long time. And then you see this on Instagram or TikTok or something, and you just see this is the person who took that photo. And you go, whoa, oh, okay. And then you just accept that at face value. But it's always worth investigating. You can start on Wikipedia, you can start wherever you like, but it's always worth investigating. So, that's all. That's all I gotta say. Yeah, and I agree with you. People don't like to... And in this day and age, like, when I was a kid, people said don't go on Wikipedia. I don't even know what they're saying in schools these days. I'm hoping they're saying don't just ask ChatGPT. That's what I'm really hoping. I'm hoping that people's research is not just being done through ChatGPT. Because again, ChatGPT or any different generative AI or you know, AI that consolidates information, you know, it might have correct information. Sometimes it does. But it can't be your only source. And AI like that really makes people even lazier when it comes to doing research, because you don't even have to click on the link to go to Wikipedia. Like if I looked up on Google who photographed the falling soldier, boom, there's my AI overview. Again, like, this information might be correct, it might not be. I literally have no idea. I don't know any information about this. But again, it just makes people even like, okay, the famous... I don't even have to read it. It's highlighted right there. Robert Capa. Okay, boom, there's my answer. And it might be correct. It might be. But you can't just use one source, and especially things like this. And again, yeah, Wikipedia too. You know, some of this information, a lot of this information they're probably pulling from Wikipedia. You can see right here. It's citing Wikipedia as one of its sources. Then you go to Wikipedia and see where they're citing their sources. It just requires you to put in a little bit of work. That's all I'm saying. Yeah, well, that's the other thing. Like, who took that photo of the guy sitting on the iPad? Well, who took this photo? If he's the photographer, who else is up there with a camera? You know, this is a time where a camera was a very expensive niche piece of equipment. Most people didn't own a camera. So someone else went up there, followed him with the camera. And yes, you can colorize photos. The part about this that is suspicious to me is not the fact that the photo is colorized. And, like... yeah, he's standing in a really weird spot. I don't know why he would be standing like this. You know, again, like his foot could be bounced. So like this is a surface here. You know, I-beams are so named because they have a little ridge on the top and a little ridge on the bottom. So his other foot could be like flat on the beam like this. Like, it's not impossible. And, like, AI generative images are so convincing these days, like, I don't see anything in here. Like, this is such a low-resolution, grainy image. Another source that's worth checking out from time to time is Reddit. Like, Reddit has a lot of information that, again, might not be true, but there are a lot of different people, and when you see, you know, images like this, you can have people say, like, oh, this is correct, this isn't. Someone will correct you, someone will correct that person. And here we go. I mean, I didn't look at the Reddit the last time I was looking at this. Someone put a TLDR here. There were 4 photographers up there that day. The one in the picture is Tom Kelly. No one knows for sure who was responsible for the famous photo. Again, was this person's source on that? I don't know. But here's a bunch of sources here. And you can read all of this stuff. So, you know. There you go. We can move on. I'm pretty much done with this illustration, by the way. We can move on to my next illustration, as well as moving on from this topic. This is an important topic, though. I'm glad we're talking about this. Because what's really important is that we as humans don't lose our ability to think critically. That is our our most powerful survival tool. That is how we have survived this long as a species. You know, we don't have sharp claws. We can't breathe underwater. We can't reproduce by budding. But we have very powerful minds, and we do not want those powerful minds to be dulled by, you know, easily accessible information that feels really tempting to just believe. And if I sound like I'm getting heated, I'm not like upset with anyone in the chat. Like, I'm not like annoyed at you or anything. I get upset about this kind of stuff in general because I think there is a huge media literacy and just sort of intelligence crisis happening throughout human culture, at least in the United States. I mean, it feels like it's global, but at the very least, the United States has a huge media literacy problem, and just literacy problem in general, where people just don't really know how to find information. And saying that Wikipedia is an untrustworthy source does not help that problem. Unless you really have a singular trustworthy source that you believe. Again, I don't believe it. There is no one singular trustworthy source for all of your information. And not Wikipedia, not, you know, the Truth Network or whatever. Like, you have to be discerning. Alright, I think I am pretty much done with this. I say as I keep working on it. Okay, now I'm done with this. So that is day 9, Tempest. And let's do day 10. I'm going to double check, but I believe day 10 is Abyss. Let me check my own prompt list, because I can never remember it off the top of my head. Excuse me. Yes, Abyss is day 10. Alright, so we're going to make a cool sea creature. Before we do that, I'm just going to use the bathroom real quick. And I'm going to refill my water bottle. Be right back. Throw up the BRBs. That's the wrong button. There we go. Ooh. Oh, I'm doing a little stretching too. I'm going to the bathroom and I'm going to refill my water bottle. It is always a dangerous thing to say that you're doing both of those things at the same time, isn't it? I feel like I should adjust my camera a little bit. I feel like I'm over on the edge. Let's see if I do a little tilt and pan here. There. I'm a little more centered. Now when I lean back, I'm not off screen. Yeah, that's a little bit better. May I make a suggestion? Take some influence from El Cuero, from Chilean Mapuche folklore. Let's look up what the hell that is. El Cuero. Weird frickin' slug monster? That eats you? This is very interesting. Is that a band? It's like a pelt. An aquatic pelt that eats you. That is very interesting. But I already have an idea. And I'm not going to do this one. But I do kind of want to read more about that. That seems very interesting. No, my idea is actually kind of vanilla, but I want to do it anyway. Kind of basic. I want to do a giant mouth. I want it to be an aquatic creature. I'll start with a small sketch. I want it to be, you know, abyss. You know, being it's from the deep sea. An abyss doesn't necessarily even have to mean it has to be aquatic, but I want it to be aquatic because I haven't done a lot of aquatic ones yet. Oh, for fuck's sake. Let me turn on Do Not Disturb. I want a big mouth. That's not big enough. That's not nearly big enough. But I want part of the abyss to just be its big fucking mouth. I want it to be kind of whale-like. Kind of crocodilian. And kind of squid-like. So I wanted, I said that I wanted to take a little opportunity to talk more about my my process, because I've been trying to figure out what kind of process works for me. And people have been asking me, what kind of process works for you. And I always feel so awkward because I'm like, I don't know yet. But I'll tell you something that I've been figuring out for myself is really that segmenting your illustration process into say rough sketch, into line work, into color blocking, into final color and lighting or whatever. It's not always, you shouldn't think of it as you do this and then you do that and you move on from the, you have to be flexible. You have to be willing to return back to previous stages of your work and really consider each stage of that process, and not feel like at any point, I can't go back and change something at this stage. And just in general, be a little more open to changing things at different points in your process. I don't know if I'm getting my point across correctly, but I'll just demonstrate with this illustration as I work on this. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to do a really rough sketch. But when I say really rough, something I think that has not been helpful for me is making it too rough, too gestural, too much like I can't really actually tell what's going on. And I think the best way to combat that problem is to just realize whenever you're at a point in the process where you're like, I have a problem with this, and say, okay, how can I clarify this, for my own sake? How can I, okay, so right here, in this part of my process, this mouth is kind of like what I want. But I'm worried, I don't really understand the anatomy of it just yet. And I think for now, I'm okay with that. I'm going to get some reference. I'm going to look at some whale skulls and stuff. And I think that'll help with the anatomy a little bit. But I want to make sure that I clarify this enough before I get to any other stage in the process. And maybe I even do some work into this phase of the process that is less sketchy and maybe a little bit more closer to line work. I'm not at the line work stage yet, but maybe I want to clarify this mouth with more information and clean it up in a way that is similar to doing line work. I'm not at that stage yet. I'm not going to move on from the sketch stage. But, there's more information I want to include here for my own sake, just to help me understand what it is that I'm doing, what I'm trying to represent with my lines. And if I can clarify that now, at this stage of the process, I won't have to try to figure it out later while I'm at a point in the illustration where it'll be a lot harder for me to figure out what the hell I was trying to say initially. Also, sometimes, if I'm really not happy with how it's been looking, I'll just, have the sort of wherewithal to just be like, I'm going to restart. I'm going to take what I have here, because I like some of it, and I'm going to say, it's not going in a direction that I want. I have time. Again, you have to kind of realize this earlier on in the process. but say I haven't quite gotten it where I want to be yet. So I'm gonna start over. I'm gonna save this sketch. I don't know if I want them to actually have suction cups per se. I don't like these giant fins that I gave it. I also think I want to move. It doesn't look big enough. Its body is too compact. I want to move this part back a little bit. Sort of more clearly define this back here. Instead of these being arms, make them more like fins. I feel like the main shape here is going to be the tentacles in the back, so I don't want to distract from that too much. I don't want any other element of the design kind of competing with those tentacles. Now, another thing, again, I was saying how I want to practice my silhouette design a little bit. I don't love this silhouette. It's kind of weird and confused. And it's a little balanced, too. Like, the tentacles are bigger than the mouth. I think I want the mouth to be bigger. So really wanna make this mouth menacing. Big rows of teeth. There's some issues that I have there. Alright, so now this is an example of a moment where I have to slow down for a second and try to clarify a little better. So first I want to see if I like this, adding these like almost like bits of his skull rather than teeth. No, I don't really like that, to be honest. Alright, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to do what I was saying before. I'm going to take this. I don't hate everything about it, but I'm going to just put it over there for now. And I'm going to try something else. Something that I like to do with teeth is kind of use dentition. It doesn't look like it would belong in an animal's mouth, like a, you know, that doesn't really look like whale teeth. It doesn't even really look like fish teeth. Kind of make like these mammalian looking teeth with like clear incisors and molars and canine teeth. Makes it a little stranger, a little more freaky looking. Yeah, I'm already liking this mouth a lot better. A lot of the times, your first idea will not be your best idea. And sometimes it's worth taking the extra time at the beginning of an illustration to say, I don't really like the way this looks. I'm going to try again. Sketch there for a moment. I think in order to really sell this scale, you know, the sheer size of it, I'm going to have to do a little foreshortening. Otherwise, it's just not going to fit. Gonna make it a little bit smaller again, just on the canvas, so I can fit all of it in. I'm trying to figure out if I should add like some crazy crown or something. Might be kind of interesting. Also be kind of funny if I just gave it like big feet so maybe it can walk on land if it wants to. I feel like a subaquatic kaiju is scarier than a semi-subaquatic kaiju. You know, you think you're safe on land, and then it follows you up. And that's the fun thing about designing kaijus. You don't really have to make them make sense. I'll make that mouth a little bit bigger again. A little bit of foreshortening on the tentacles, but not too much, because I still want them to read as long tentacles. What I also want to do is, before I work into this too much further, I want to kind of take a step back and really think about if this is everything I want to add, or if I'm going to finish it and I'm going to look at it and I'm going to say, oh, I wish I had done this, this, and that. And I think the best way to do that, actually, is to add a little bit of color. Because you can't really get the full idea of what you've illustrated if you haven't added all of the elements of your illustration yet. Ooh, maybe some like shark teeth around the edge of this mouth here. Yeah, just like a giant mouth. Okay, this is looking a lot more like what I wanted it to look like. What if it had something behind it trying to eat it was much larger? That is not really something I want to do with this piece. I want this to look like the largest thing in the sea. There doesn't really need to be something bigger behind it. That's a sort of to what end kind of thing. Tiny submarine shape in the mouth. I guess I could do that. People have been asking if I can include some scale reference in the illustrations. And I haven't quite figured out a good way to do that that looks good. The last Kaijune I did, I added like a separate slide for each one that had like the lore and a scale reference written on it. But that was a lot of extra work on top of a drawing challenge that already asked a lot from me. But I could definitely put like, you know what, actually put in a little, I could do like what I did with some of the smallest illustrations that I did last year. Put like an actual whale in its mouth for scale. I feel kind of bad. That whale is just cooked. That actually might be that might be too big. I don't think it's that fucking big. Let's make this whale a little bit larger. Okay. That's more of the size I was thinking of. Doesn't really need to be bigger than that, to be honest. Bigger than that, we're starting to get to the point where it's like, how would this thing even move around? It would swim, you know, for 3 minutes and crash into one of the continents. Turn around, swim for another 3 minutes, crash into another continent. But this thing would also move very slowly, I'm assuming. Pretty big boy. I think I might add a little more length to its body. maybe scale the whole thing up a little bit too. Now, I feel like I wrote in the description of Katanga that it was the largest Goliath that humanity encountered during the War for Mankind. And this is definitely bigger. This is definitely larger than 400 feet tall. So I'm going to have to consider that in the lore. Maybe this particular Goliath was discovered after the War for Mankind, or maybe some people know about it, but it hasn't. I feel like, you know, making a deep sea creature, there's a lot of room for it to just sort of be unknown, like, you know, it hasn't even been discovered by humans yet. You know, we know it's down there somewhere. Oh, that's creepy. That's always fun, to do something like we know it's there, we just don't know where it is. Alright, so now what I want to do is, while I have it kind of at this rough stage, I want to take the background element, that, I want the thing to be mostly dark, but let's start just like a mid-tone. And just want to start thinking about colors a little bit. You know, I'm not done with my line work or anything, and these colors don't have to be perfect. But I want to start thinking about color and shape a little bit before I keep working on the lines. So that way I can see if there's anything that I feel like I'm going to want to add. Because, you know, sometimes, I'm sure a lot of you can relate to this. Sometimes you're working on something and you're happy with it through each step of the illustration process. But then you get to the end and you're like, wow, I wish I could add this or that. And it's because when you're at the end, you see all of the different steps combined. You see the sketch and the line work and the colors and the lighting all together. So a lot of the times, you know, the easy solution to that is just doing thumbnailing, right? Just do really quick, rough illustrations where you figure out color and light and shape and everything before you work too far into the finished design. And I'm not quite going to do a thumbnail per se, but before I do any more work on this, I am going to just start thinking about things other than line. So already, I actually have a couple problems with this. I don't like how we lose a lot of movement in the back here. I feel like we can shift some things around. Let's do this. Let's just take this part of the design. I kind of just want to pull it up like that and back like that. I didn't really notice it until I started blocking in those colors. So now let's see. If I fill that back in. I still want to kind of create more of an arch. I like those shapes better, you know? Squinch those down a bit. Then I think I'll just take the whole thing and do like that. And let me just take the back here. Let me just hit it for the back for a second. Just kind of do that. Go here. Do we have room for a big dorsal fin? How would that look? Would that be stupid? Or is that kind of goated? Oops. There. I don't know, I kind of like that. I don't know, chat, that's looking pretty goated. Am I cooking? Chat, am I cooking? Might be cooking, chat. Hey, whoa, that's a little... Nope, keep using the wrong pencils. That's the one I want. Double check. Someone said little bumps on the back. I definitely think we could do that too, honestly. I said I wanted some like crocodilian kind of features. We could do like these osteoderms. Just want to make sure that those follow the form of the back. Reinforce the foreshortening as well. And now this might be altogether too much now. No, that's too much. I can already tell. Well, let's just try. Let's just see what it looks like. if I give him big whiskers? Am I doing too much? No, I don't know. I kind of like the whiskers. Kind of like the big barbells. What do we think? We like the barbells or no? While we're doing this, I'm also just going to do that. Let's just get some rough colors in here. Definitely want some bioluminescence. I think I want a red mouth. Glowing red mouth. I think that might be quite awesome. Wait, that's not. That's the center of the mouth. Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty frickin' sweet. Do sea creatures fart? Well, that's a good question, and I think it's tricky because sea creatures, that's a lot of different animals. I don't think invertebrates like crabs or jellyfish fart. I don't think their digestive systems produce like carbon as a byproduct. But maybe. Even if they do, I don't think they would release that carbon in the form, like, they don't have, like, anuses the way a lot of vertebrates do, so it wouldn't make a sound, even if it did, even if they did release gas. But I imagine that animals like whales, any marine mammal, seals, whales, they probably fart. You know, especially seals. I bet seals have pretty disgusting farts, to be honest. And, you know, because their digestive systems are like ours, so they will have to, at some point in the digestion process, release the byproduct of carbon from their digestive system. And seals have anuses. They have wet anuses too. The seal's anus is probably always at least a little wet, so it would probably make a pretty audible, stinky sound. And it would probably smell terrible. I don't know. I think fish probably, you know, expel carbon, but fish are always underwater, so there wouldn't be a smell per se, not a smell that humans could detect. I feel like this music is fucking looping, man. Let's try this. I feel like I've heard the same tune like 14 times. Oh yeah, penguins are fucking disgusting smelling. If you've ever been to a zoo that has the New England Aquarium actually in Boston, they have penguins inside, and it is actually a horrible smell. I think generally carnivorous animals have smellier farts. You know, something about the digestive process of breaking down meat makes for some really stinky farts. And, you know, penguins just eat meat. Specifically fish. And, like, undigested fish smells terrible. Alright. I have some more problems with this. My problem is that there's a lot of negative space in the back here where there's nothing going on. Should I add some more bioluminescence? Maybe something that kind of looks like gills? That looks kind of cool. Some kind of like recurring motif that I've been doing with these Goliaths is like eyes running down the sides of the body. But I don't know how many times I can do that before I feel like maybe I'm just kind of using the same idea over and over again. Like, I like it as a motif, I think it works, but I'm worried that it might become a little overdone. Maybe I could do this. Maybe I could make some segments on the tentacles that have light coming from in between them. No, that doesn't look good. I think the light should stay in the front half of the body. Yeah, they're a little close, but I don't because it's all dark in the back, you still wouldn't be able to see it unless I made them glowing. But also, that would be a lot of damn work. I've done that before in challenges like this where I've done, like, illustrated all the individual tentacles. Well, maybe this is just an issue I can solve with color, though, and lighting. Because if I do that, that breaks up a lot of the negative space on the back, and it gives it a little bit more form. Maybe that's a simple solution to this. I don't have to go crazier than that. Because that already, I like that. That looks better. Alright, let me go back to, let me go back to the lines here. And clean some things up. So a lot of the time when people ask me, you know, how can I save time doing things like that, something I've definitely found out about myself is that really helps is just spending a little bit more time in the process stage. You know, don't try to rush to get a finished product. You know, it's worth spending a little bit more time doing a thumbnail or kind of doing what I'm doing right now where I try out a couple of different things in the sketching process. Because a lot of the times, you know, if you're very comfortable, if you're like me and you're very comfortable with line art, you know, you're very comfortable with drawing, you know, with lines, you know, creating form through lines, what can sometimes happen is that part of the process feels very intuitive and it comes easily to you. And then you get to like the colors or the lighting or whatever, and you end up actually getting stuck because you might feel unhappy with the way it's looking, and you get frustrated and you get confused and you keep going back and forth. And I don't know if I'm really describing anyone else's problems. I assume other people have these problems, but I definitely have these problems. And so for me, it really helps to figure these things out, you know, and sort of work, like I was saying before. Instead of going step 1, step 2, step 3, you gotta go step 1, step 2, step 3, back to step 2, back to step 3, back to step 1, step 4, back to step 2, and kind of just... It doesn't sound like that would save a lot of time, does it? But I don't think I'm describing it correctly. Because if you do step 1 and step 2, and you're happy with those, and then you get to step 3 and you feel like you're stuck, you're going to waste a lot of time in step 3. And though it sounds like jumping back and forth like that would waste even more time, I have found, personally, over these last few illustrations that I've done for this challenge, I have found that it saves a lot more time to figure these things out. Figure out light, figure out texture and color and silhouette before you consider what you're doing to be finished, before you consider a step to be finished. Because once a step is finished, it's a lot harder for you to mentally feel like, okay, I'm going to go back and change something about that step. And if at any point in your process you feel like I don't like this, I want to change this, stop and change it in that moment. As soon as you notice it, you're like, I'm frustrated with this. I don't like the way this is going. Don't keep working into it and hope that you're going to stumble upon the solution. If you keep banging your head against a wall, you should stop, identify what you don't like about it, and fix it before you work too much further into your illustration. For example, I think I don't like how the teeth on the outermost bottom jaw are significantly larger than the teeth on the top jaw. I want it to look like when the mouth closes, the teeth would interlock. And really make that like steel jaw looking kind of shape. So I think I'm going to make these teeth a little bit smaller. Closer in size to those teeth. Before I keep working into it. 'Yeah, see, now it looks like when the mouth closes, you can actually see, you can imagine that as the mouth closes, those teeth on the outermost layer would interlock, and then it would bite a hole clean through anything big enough for it to not just eat it whole. But if you're like a whale or something, maybe each one of those jaws are closing independently, and you're just trapped in there. Yep, see, I like that a lot better. Actually, this tooth is it's a little long in the tooth there. Shorten that a little bit. Can I turn my dog into a dragon if I'm doing Smogus this year? Yeah, I did that for Smogus a couple years ago, actually. What year was that I did a Panko Dragon? I think it was 2 years ago. Well, maybe not. Three years ago? Four years ago? I definitely made a Panko Dragon during one Smogus. Oh yeah, there it is. 2021, I made a Panko Dragon. I'm going to do something real quick, because I feel like I've used this color scheme Maybe too many times. What if I just did some hue shifts? Try something new. Think about it. I'll think about it. I'll come back to that. Isn't she adorable? Is she a big cutie pie? Sorry, I'm getting a little quiet here. I'm getting lost in the sauce, as we say in the industry. Sometimes when that illustration is just putting itself together. And see, this is the nice thing about the process I was talking about. You know, if you give yourself, you know, a little extra room to a little extra time to figure out some of the more complicated aspects of your illustration, the rest of it kind of just falls together. And it's very satisfying. I think part of what's so scary about a shark's mouth, other than the obvious, you know, sharp teeth and being eaten, is that they almost have lips. You know, the skin around their mouths sort of folds back when they fully extend their jaws, and it's very uncanny. It almost feels like their teeth are too big to fit in their mouth, and they kind of are. You know, sharks can't really close their jaws all the way. And when they're opening them and you sort of see like all of these folds and wrinkles as they're pulling their lips back, so to speak. They don't really have lips, but it's unsettling. Like shark jaws, you know, sharks themselves can be kind of cute. When a shark opens its mouth, it's very terrifying. For a lot of reasons. Back after getting wrecked by a Katarina. I'm sorry that happened to you. Boy, Claire and I did a couple of games yesterday, and it was rough. I've been on a bit of a losing streak. Gets to a point where you're like, I can't even blame my team anymore. Like, I don't have the same teammates in every game, except for me. I'm the one teammate that I have in every game. And like, you know, your teammates can suck, but still. Sometimes you're like, huh, maybe I'm the problem. Call me hard stuck Silver Jack for nothing. Oh, I need a wrist break on this bad boy. Oh, man. Ugh. Alright. I think I'm actually going to call the stream for now. We've been at it for about 3 hours here. And that's about the extent of my ability to sit still in one place. So I think I'm going to take a little break. I'm going to call the stream. Call it done, that is. And I'll be back tomorrow. I'll probably finish this one off stream, but you'll be able to see it finished. Oh, probably on tomorrow's stream. I'll show it to you guys. But you'll also be able to see it finished on the Unveil and on the main channel's community post and on my Instagram. And all of those links are in the description. Oh, and I'm going to fix the Unveil link after this stream is over. So thank you guys all so much for watching. If you're doing Kaijune this month, best of luck. Keep at it. We are done with 1 week. 3 more weeks to go. But thank you for joining me, and I'll see you in the next stream. Peace.